You want to know what the NFL is? The NFL is this t-shirt. That's right. It's a cat with a golden gun on top of a unicorn that blows fire. Yeah, seems like a pretty apt metaphor. Grassy Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, a podcast where you don't, I do Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Kitty Goes Grassy, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting every single game in the Week 6 lineup. Last week, had my best week yet. Went 12-4, which means I'm in 292nd place. These are the games I got right. These are the games I got wrong, meaning I am 48-31 on the season. I see you people at the top of the Pick'em League rankings. I see you. We got 4 teams on their bye week, so only 14 games, which means there's 2 less opportunities I have to be wrong, positive. And so we begin with Thursday night, in which at some point Jeff Bezos has to turn around and go, what did I pay $1 billion for again? Because after the barn burner that was the Colts and the Broncos, we got the Washington Commanders taking on the Chicago Bears. Yup, and I'll be streaming it. The Commanders didn't look god-awful this past week. Carson Wentz actually looked pretty darn good. There were some playmakers for Washington, and then Carson Wentz threw an interception at the very end, but didn't look atrocious. Definitely one of the worst teams in the league, but a tiny little bright spot. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears, another team, didn't look entirely atrocious, especially Justin Fields, their young QB, a guy who has been under a lot of pressure, and not just from his offensive line, but from the Chicago fan base. And so now you put this all together, and what are you going to get? Most likely a god-awful game. Now, the good news, it's not being played in DC, so nobody should have a gruesome injury due to the field breaking them or opening up like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, that pretty much ends the good news there. This actually could wind up being, it's not going to be a high-scoring affair. I tried. With the Bears offense, I mean, they put up a bunch of points this past Sunday, but this game is going to be like watching 2 of your drunk friends fight it out between wanting to go ice skating at 2 a.m. or going to Wendy's.
I'm sorry, I just wanted a Frosty.
But I'm going to pick the Bears to win it because it's Soldier Field. Yeah, I got nothing, but maybe the run game will be good for the Bears. I don't know. This game's going to be really bad. Following that, you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The 49ers able to put away their previous NFC South opponent in the Panthers this past week, and they lost a lot of people. They lost a lot of good men that day. So it came at a heavy cost, multiple injuries for the San Francisco 49ers. However, they're still able to run the ball really well. I still think their defense is going to be good. Meanwhile, the Falcons had a 21-0 deficit, roared on back, and then the refs were like, you don't get to beat Tom Brady. And so the Falcons fell a bit short. The Falcons, I got to give them some credit. I do. They've been playing pretty darn well against their competition, in which a lot of people thought they were going to be the worst team in football, and I will give it to them. They are far from the worst team in football. They're still not a great team, but they're fighting back, and Marcus Mariota also is their QB. I think this is actually going to be a pretty close game, and I know a lot of people would pick the San Francisco 49ers to win because of their defense, but I'm actually going to go for the upset here. It's being played in Atlanta. I'm going to go for the Falcons to win this game. Is this going to totally backfire and is going to ruin my predictions? Absolutely, but I kind of believe in it. Following that, you got the New England Patriots taking on the Cleveland Browns. The Patriots, a dominant performance against the Detroit Lions, in which the Lions had 0 points last week, and the Patriots continued to run the ball very, very well. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns almost were able to steal away a win against the LA Chargers, but a Cade York missed field goal It didn't happen. The Browns are a decent football team, and the Patriots, I think they kind of just have their formula. They almost beat the Packers with Bailey Zappi a couple of weeks ago, and I think they'll be successful here against the Cleveland Browns. I think the biggest threat, of course, will be the Browns' run game, but I think the Patriots' run game is going to be able to compete with it. I'm going to pick the Patriots here in probably what is going to be a very low-scoring game, but I think the Patriots are just better coached, and I think they'll be ready for guys like Jacoby Brissett. Then you have a game where I didn't think I'd have to worry about. But now I'm a little worried. You got the New Jersey Jets, that's right, you're still New Jersey, taking on the Green Bay Packers. The Jets smacking the ever-living crap out of the Dolphins last week, who are desperately missing Tua and also their corners. And they're a little scary right now. Their defense is looking good. Sauce Gardner, whatever they're making, it's better than whatever the hell Russell Wilson is cooking. And the Packers, they're kind of in a rut right now. Close overtime game with the third-string QB and Bailey Zappi with the Patriots a couple weeks ago. Then they just do not show up in the second half. And it seems like there's some issues with this Green Bay Packers team right now. I'm hoping that they're able to rebound a little bit because they have the answer right in front of them. It's the run game. Aaron Jones is one of the best running backs right now in the NFL, but he's just not given the ball. Aaron Rodgers looks off. He will look amazing like the back-to-back MVP that he is, and then he is just going to be missing receivers. I know the offensive line is not the best right now, but you also have to look at the defense, in which they were just abysmal in the second half of that game. The Packers need to win this game. They need a bounce-back game. They have two opponents that should be able to be beaten in the Jets and then the Commanders, and then they're going to be playing against the Bills. So if the Packers are not able to get right now against the Jets, it's gonna be panic time. I'm gonna pick the Packers here to win, and mostly it's because of my own sanity that it's hinging upon it. Then you got an AFC South battle between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts. The Jaguars, a rough game against the Texans, allowing the Texans to get their first win. And the past 2 weeks, they have just looked off. They got off to an early start and lead against the Eagles, and then they fumbled all of that away because of bad weather. This past week, you couldn't blame the weather. Meanwhile, the Colts won in what was probably the ugliest game of the season until the Commanders and Bears play. Matt Ryan looked abysmal. The guy has fumbled, I think, 11 times now. The one saving grace I'll say is that I think Jonathan Taylor is probable to return this week, which would be a big boost for them. And I know the Jaguars, they play the Colts pretty well. They've already beaten them earlier this season. However, I think the Colts at home will be able to get their revenge, especially if Jonathan Taylor is back. Maybe they'll be able to establish the run, and for the love of God, get the ball out of Matt Ryan's incapable hands. Then you got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Vikings find themselves at 4-1, and they can't even explain it. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, after losing Tua, have dropped their last couple of games. The Vikings have the offensive weapons to go up against a battered secondary of the Miami Dolphins and a third-string QB. I think the Vikings are going to win this game simply because the Dolphins are a beat-up football team right now. The Dolphins should be able to put up a fight, but with guys like Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, I think those deep threats are going to be a problem for that secondary. So because of that, unfortunately, I'm picking the purple incarnation of Satan to win, though I really hope I'm wrong. Then you got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the New Orleans Saints. A really interesting game here. The Bengals, Zach Taylored it away. That's right, his name is a verb now. On Sunday night against the Ravens, had opportunities to win that football game, and honestly just completely screwed it up. Meanwhile, the Saints had a shootout with the Seattle Seahawks, and Taysom Hill, good God, 3 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown. I think he had a fumble recovery on special teams. Amazing. Who's going to be the main QB this week? Let's tune in and see. I'm actually going to give this one to the Saints here. I think their defense is going to be able to contain the Bengals because the Bengals just don't look the same right now. I think their offensive line is going to struggle against the Saints pass rush, and regardless of whoever the QB is for the Saints, they should be able to pull off the W. Following that, you got the Baltimore Ravens taking on the New York Giants. That's right, the respect is on your name.
Put some respect on my name. You understand me? When y'all saying my name, put some respect on it.
The Ravens, a close matchup against the Bengals from this past Sunday night, able to seal it with a Justin Tucker win. Lamar Jackson looked a bit off at times on Sunday night, but with that ground game and guys like Duvernay, who was so explosive, able to come out on top. Meanwhile, the Giants showing that Brian Daboll is their Lord and Savior. He is that guy. They are fixing a lot of their problems with just good coaching. This actually could be a really sneaky good game. And the Giants, they might surprise people again. I am going to pick against them, though, because I do think the Ravens are a better football team. But look out. The Giants scored a bunch of points last week, and if they could do what they did to the Packers, yep, that hurt to say. The Giants will win, but I'm going to pick the Ravens anyway here. Then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bucs able to escape with the win, as we talked about, against the Atlanta Falcons after blowing a lead in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, the Steelers got their absolute ass kicked by the Buffalo Bills. Kenny Pickett didn't look too bad, but pretty much everything else did for the Steelers team. This is being played at home, though it really doesn't matter. The Steelers are just trying to figure out if they have their franchise guy, while he hopefully doesn't die behind that offensive line. The Buccaneers, while not really a good football team right now and going up against a good defense, should be able to do enough, and I think that their pass rush should be able to get after Kenny Pickett. So because of that, I'm going to go with Tom Brady, who's probably going to throw the ball 60 times to beat the Steelers. Following that, you got a cat. You got the Carolina Panthers taking on the LA Rams. The Panthers, they lost last week, but oh boy, they are dancing in the streets. Why? Because now they can fully commit to their rebuild now that Matt Rule is no longer there. Sure, he took millions of dollars from your organization and gave you literally nothing, but think of all the memes and memories you have of him now. The Panthers don't have Baker Mayfield, as he suffered a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a little bit, so they're going to be rocking with PJ Walker, taking on the Rams, who look absolutely abysmal. The Panthers defense, which is kind of like the lone bright spot of their team, should be able to get a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford because, oh boy, everybody else is doing it. The Rams' offensive line is just god-awful. They have no run game whatsoever. Matthew Stafford does not have a lot of time to throw the ball, and when he does, he's making some bad decisions. Now, to be fair, he is forced into a lot of those bad decisions because of the lack of time. But thankfully for the Rams, they are going up against a very bad football team in the Panthers. And so the Rams need to get this win here because they have just looked god-awful this entire season. I think they'll pick it up against Carolina, and the Panthers can, again, hopefully get a franchise QB in the next draft. Then you got a battle of the birds in this NFC West matchup. You got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Cardinals almost able to pull off a potential upset against the Philadelphia Eagles, but Amendola missed the kick, and the rest is history. Meanwhile, the Seahawks losing in a shootout. Their defense, not good. Pete Carroll, the defensive mastermind, not looking like that. And even worse, Rashad Penny suffering an injury. The good thing is that you do have Geno Smith, who has been slinging it, much to the surprise of everybody. This actually should be a really close game, and I know people are going to potentially pick the Cardinals to win, but I'm actually going to go with the Seahawks here. It's being played in Seattle. Geno Smith has been playing really, really well, and while the Cardinals might put up a bunch of points against this bad defense, I don't know, there's something about this that I think the Seahawks are going to be able to do it, because unlike Russell Wilson, they're cooking. Then you have the game that should have been on Sunday Night Football. You got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. This could be the best game of the season thus far. The Bills, as we talked about, smacked the crap out of the Steelers. Gabe Davis emerging as a phenomenal wide receiver, going along with Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen, of course, being Josh Allen. They don't even need to run the ball if they don't want to. Meanwhile, the Chiefs in a close divisional battle with the Raiders this past Monday night, able to come back and escape. A lot of it thanks to Travis Kelce and his 4 TDs, and also Josh McDaniels being an idiot. This should be a phenomenal football game being played at Arrowhead. You know the Bills want to exercise these demons like they did to the Patriots last year in the playoffs. They want to get some revenge.
I've been looking forward to this.
I think this will be a high-scoring affair, and I honestly cannot wait to watch it. I am going to pick the Buffalo Bills to get the W. I wouldn't be surprised if either team got the win, but come playoff time, this is going to make a difference for seeding, as one of these teams will likely be the number 1 seed in the AFC, and that will determine where this rematch will likely take place, whether it'll be in Buffalo or Kansas City. Then you have a divisional matchup on Sunday Night Football. You got the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Both teams coming away with the win. Both teams looking real good this season. The Cowboys, they're keeping it simple. Their defense is kicking teams' ass, while their offense, they're running the ball effectively, and Cooper Rush is doing enough not to lose the game. Meanwhile, the Eagles, surviving off the electrifying offense of Jalen Hurts, whether it's on the ground like it was last week or through the air. He can do both. And their defense is nothing to shake your finger at either. This should be another really good game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a low-scoring game. And of course, the biggest matchup we want to see is that electrifying offense of Philly going up against the very stingy defense of Dallas. Now, what this comes down to is, one, I think home field advantage, because I think Philadelphia is going to be rocking on Sunday night. And two, while the Cowboys defense is very good, I do think that Jalen Hurts will be able to score some points here. I think they're going to run the ball effectively because, listen, even though the defense is really good for the Cowboys, the offensive line for the Eagles is pretty darn good too. So I'm going to go with the Eagles to get the win here, remain undefeated, and sorry, Cowboys fans, for me, Cooper Rush's perfection streak ends on Sunday night. And then finally, in a game where I'm pretty sure this violates the Geneva Convention somewhere.
Does the term cruel and unusual punishment mean anything to you?
The Broncos are somehow in prime time again. Can we flex games yet? Taking on the LA Chargers. The Broncos have stunk it up in 2 primetime games already, because they were actually at least like interesting to watch week 1 on Monday Night Football. But since then, woof. Sunday Night Football against the 49ers, garbage. This past Thursday against the Colts, one of the worst games I've ever seen. And the Broncos, they want to ride. But Russell just doesn't know how.
I don't know what any of this is, and I'm scared.
The Broncos have no run game. Their offense looks flat. Their defense looks good, but they're also dealing with just a ton of injuries all the way around. They can't afford to lose any more offensive linemen, and that's really all there is to say for the Broncos. Meanwhile, the Chargers, as I talked about on rankings, they keep trying to Charger games away and give their fans heart problems. Austin Eckler is running the ball really, really well, continuing to be a really great weapon for them, and you just gotta hope that they stick to that. The Broncos defense is good, and I think that they will provide a unique challenge against the Chargers, who have an explosive offense. But at the end of the day, there is nothing that tells me that Russell Wilson will be able to succeed against the pass rush of the Chargers. Khalil Mack having himself a nice season. So I'm going to pick the Chargers to win here. I'm sorry that we have to watch the Broncos again in primetime, and I think they only have 1 game left, but I hope at that point they're just flexed out. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you think these games are going to shake out in week 6? Let me know. You can find me at TomGrassiComedy.com or TomGrassiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrassiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grassi. And as always, go Pack Go.